has that look like, well, let's forget that game ever happened. This is this is a tough moment. Like when you lose or you win the first game, and we have another e4 e5. This time a Spanish. Wesley gonna go for a Berlin, and now we see 4d3 anti Berlin. Gonna have a lot of this in this match.
We're gonna have Italian alternating with Ruy Lopez, kind of like the Wesley Hikaru match from the CGC. But if you had looked at that game just via a bunch of diagrams, you would have been forgiven for thinking that it was a super smooth effort by Wesley, just kind of a vintage classic Wesley game. But if you look more carefully, there was that crazy moment when Nodribek was flat out winning if he had grabbed the pawn on h3. So that's both a good thing and the bad thing, right? Maybe Wesley isn't in as good of tactical form as he normally is. But on the other hand, maybe ignorance is bliss. Maybe it's better for Nodribek not to know what kind of a chance he had in game one.
And if there was coaching allowed, like they do in basketball, where the coach can yell out a play and you go, oh, all right, I got it. Or exploit this defense. You know, if your coach could be like, by the way, he blundered horribly with G3, you'd be like, oh, I had a chance. I wonder if Nodribek is just sitting there like, I just got obliterated. I never had any chance in that game. Obviously, these players have different emotional kind of balance, imbalance. So he might just be like, all right, I'm going to try my best with white now. But just knowing that your opponent totally messed that up for a move is a big plus to self-confidence moving forward. He's got to strike back quickly. You can't let it get away. Like you said, Wesley's not going to relinquish a 3-point lead.
For sure. And I like the way Nodribek is approaching this game. Very aggressive. G2, G4 is on the board. Is he playing too aggressively? Well, the eval bar certainly thinks so. And Wesley says, get off me. He goes G6 again. This time there's no pawn on H6 to capture. And Nodribek has to bring his knight back. But Levy, a lot of holes on the king side that you're creating with that move G4. Ugh. Knight E6.
I mean, when you go, wow, I would have never in a million years played A5. And the craziest thing is the eval stayed the same, which means that it was one of the best moves. That's so ridiculous. Like
A5 and B5. He's playing on the king side. Well, he's playing on the queen side. He's also kind of playing on the king side. He's opening up the bishop. Of course, I can't draw that arrow, but you get the point.
Guys like playing G4, King H1, looking to checkmate you. You're like, yeah, A5, B5.
Exactly. And that's a very hard move to face because if white trades, oh my God, that is not how the pawn moves. If white trades, then he rectifies black's queenside pawn structure. If you don't trade, well, then what do? Do you play B3 and allow black to isolate your A pawn? I wish I could do that. Just push a bunch of queenside pawns and suddenly you're losing.
Well, not you don't push the pawns and are losing. Your opponent
is losing. Yeah.
Yes. I can push a bunch of pawns and be losing. It's really not so complicated. Yeah. Wow. I mean, so will Nodribek ever actually play Rook G1 or H4? Did he just play G4 and he's like, yep, this is my life now. I just have a pawn on G4.
Yeah,
you really wish. I have a question for you. If you offered Nodribek, like you said, hey, you can bribe Wesley with a sum of money to put the pawn back on G2 or G3, like what do you think his ceiling is? How much money? What's the risk reward?
I think he would give money in order to bring his pawn back to G3. Although I guess that's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Like what is the ceiling? $2,000? Like, if Wesley's
maybe
like
the SEC
$5 grand.
prize, $2 grand. Because that's what you get for winning an SEC match. That's what he would accept. For bringing the pawn back to G3. But right now, Wesley is kind of combining two different operations at once. He's playing against the weak kingside squares, so he might put a knight on F4, and he has this idea of going bishop D7 and queen E8, which I think ultimately is the reason why he initiated, that entire queenside operation. But on the other hand, you've got the corresponding weakness on A5 and the corresponding idea of white going queen E1. So interesting play here on both sides of the board for both players.
Yes, it is. Ooh. Knight D4 looks super nice. Yep, that knight is anchored in by two pawns and a queen. And in many ways, like sometimes you run a position like this through a computer for white, and the computer doesn't know your history. So it doesn't know that you played King H1, Rook G1, G4. It doesn't know that you lost the first game of a match. It's just like, you should not attack here. It's very bad if you attack. Just don't attack. Maybe you'll draw this game, right? And as a human, it's very difficult to do that. If you've already played King H1, Rook G1, G4, like, you can't go back. You've waited 3 hours in line for the roller coaster. You might as well just go now, right? Exactly. Like, so you just go G5 or something like that. and that might backfire. So I don't know. Will Nodribek actually successfully implement any sort of action, or will the game be decided on the queen side, taking the pawns?
It's
Gotta find
increasingly
out.
looking like that. Knight c4 does, obviously create the threat of bishop takes a5. Now, Wesley can do a bunch of different things. I like a move like bishop e6, essentially saying, go take my pawn. Clearly Nodribek isn't in the mood to take Wesley's pawn sacrifices, but maybe you just play in the center, bishop e6 and queen d7, and try to overextend white on the queen side. If you are intent on defending a5, you can play the move c6 and maybe even rook f to a7 if necessary later on. Wesley, he's learned his lesson from the previous game. He's like, I'm not giving anything away anymore.
C6 rook a7 is such a ridiculous idea. Oh my goodness.
Only in Wesley's games. Knight takes d4. Wow, committal move, allowing black to rectify his pawn structure with CD.
Yeah, CD. If ED, there was some f4 ideas. There might still be f4 ideas. Queen e1. Wow, no. Just going for the pawn.
We might see rook fa7.
That's absurd.
I kind of said it jokingly, honestly, and now I realize it's a totally legitimate move. We might see it, and we do.
Yeah, that's why he's the third ranked player in the event and the CGC champion. And I'm looking at this like I would have just chucked the pawn. Like it's just you can't actually hold on to the pawn. It's like he's playing tug of war, like in first second grade. He's like, no, that's mine. You can't have it. I'm not sharing. And there's f4. The plan looks clear as day for white. No.
Yeah, but
F4,
the problem
F5.
is that your foundations are very kind of squeaky here. Black is now threatening another bad arrow. Bishop takes c4, forcing the knight back away to d2. And Wesley's just got a lot of real estate on the queen side that he can occupy. And he's already occupying it. Rook b7. You've got ideas like c5, c4. And black is just so fundamentally sound on the king side, Levy, that the moment white plays g5, he might stand to lose in the event that the center opens up. G5 can be met with f5. Look at those light squares. I don't like the way this is going for Nodribek, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. I had mentioned this. Once you commit to g4, you can't play an endgame, because in all endgames, black has sort of just survived there with his light squared bishop. And you're right. That diagonal to the king is brutal. The white king in the corner is not safe.
No.
He's just not safe. Any pawn you push forward, G or E, immediately weakens light squares, just as you said.
I would go h3.
Yeah, seriously, it's time to play defense. And king h2, and now the king's actually kind of safe.
And then maybe cluster up further by doubling rooks on the g-file. Although let's not forget that a4 pawn is in the crosshairs of the black queen. So that might come back to white to bite him.
You know who's going to take it? Wesley.
Wesley's absolutely going to take it. Wesley's the kind of guy to go rook b4, and he does. And he says, give me that a pawn.
Oh my god. It's gone.
He's just brutal.
He can't defend it.
Oh, and you're weakening the long diagonal. This is already desperation here from Nodribek. I don't dislike e5. I think this is what he's got to try. And Wesley just bishop g7.
Yeah, he just defends everything.
He defends
like
everything.
A brick wall.
And after bishop d5, there is going to be hell to pay on the light squares.
Hey, yeah, at least now the white king can go to h2, right? At least when it was on h1, it was really miserable. But Wesley's going to take on a4. He's going to come back with his queen, and he's going to push his a-pawn. And that is how he's going to win this game.
And f5, another excellent move. The moment white positions his rook on e1, he shuts down the e-file. He shuts down the king side. And you're absolutely right. After the a-pawn disappears, black just closes his eyes and pushes his own a-pawn. So Nodribek has to create something on the king side. But what? He's trying.
By the way, black can just play, like, I'm thinking some h6 or even just bishop e6 back and bishop d5. Like, just he took on f5 and just go back. What's the problem?
Bishop e6 is a great move.
I was going to say, if there's one man on earth to take on f5 with the bishop and then just go back and go just whoop, whoop, just take an extra step, it's Wesley. I'm holding my pen. Like, this is how it's like very instructional. Wesley just like
exactly. Yeah. He said the bishop back to e6, and
yeah,
it's like when I had access to the clicker in school. Like
the
clicker that would make the red, arrow, and everybody loved it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. See, this is the stuff that the grandmasters who get homeschooled miss out on. All right, we actually went to school. All right, well, I'm not a grandmaster, but you went to school. Yeah, we got to remember those days we had a substitute teacher. We had the TV wheeled into the room.
The TV and the movie. Those were the
Yeah.
good days. That was the small pleasures in life. It would just make your day. Now
Yep.
I need like Netflix and popcorn and bed and 7 different pleasures or an SEC match. That'll do
Yes.
it for me.
Wesley just needs the pawn on h3. He has picked up his pawn, and
Whoa. E6 though. Rook
I don't
b1
know.
check. Ah, that would have won the pawn in the end. Nodribek. Okay, but now the queen comes back to e6, and here comes the rook to b1. I think Wesley's taking this one.
Yeah, Nodribek had to be faster there with the counterplay, right? It seemed like he had to play e6, just kind of go for it, because now.
Yeah, Wesley doesn't even have to hurry. Just go g5, start pushing your kingside majority.
Yep. No way he plays rook b4, right? Like, can
Never
you just
say
play rook
never.
b4?
He clearly
No
hasn't
way,
had his
right?
breakfast today.
No way he's just gonna play rook b4 and take his pawn. Wesley's the type of guy. Like Wesley's wave. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
He's so naughty. Like he just how does he do this? He just goes
says,
back.
Hey, queen, defend. Like you do all the defending, and the queen says, "Okay, no problem." Now the rook comes back. You can come back to b6 to b8. You just took the pawn and went back, and now he's gonna win after rook f8.
You just oh my god. You just went rook b4. Yeah, that's game over.
Rook f1.
Oh,
Nodribek free moving rook f1. He thought Wesley was going to go rook f1 check.